I've said it time and time again, sequels, reboots, and remakes aren't always necessary, unless you're adding value to the story or improving on a movie that fell flat. You have to bring something new, otherwise what's the point in retreading ground that's already been tread? Despite that, sequels keep coming, and some of them are truly horrendous. These are the top 5 dumbest horror movie sequels, part 2. Coming in at number 5, Piranha 3DD. I mean, I almost didn't include this movie on our list considering its predecessor wasn't the greatest movie, but it's here and we're rolling with it. Released in 2012 and directed by John Gulager, Piranha 3DD is a 3D horror comedy starring the likes of Danielle Panabaker, Matt Bush, Gary Busey, Christopher Lloyd, and David Hasselhoff. What a cast. The movie takes place 1 year after the events of the first movie, with the bloodthirsty piranhas now heading towards a local water park. This is where Maddie, Barry, and Kylie, fun-seeking friends, decide to take on the man-eating creatures. Now, I should give some credit to Alexandra Aja's original Piranha remake, with it being gory and disgusting, complete with humor and horror pandemonium. However, it's dumb, of course it is, it's about man-eating piranhas. Then 2012 rolled around, Aja wasn't available, and Gulager took his place instead, and what was spawned was a graphic sequel with a ton of nudity, with far too many 3D breasts. It's safe to say that this movie is incredibly misogynistic and was created simply for men. Variety went on to give it a scathing review, stating, I quote, "The movie ups the self-parody so much that it's practically a Wayans Brothers spoof, albeit with fewer jokes." Shots fired. Before we jump into number 4, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up. It really helps out a lot in the YouTube algorithm. Coming in at number 4, Amityville 3D. Honestly, I was unaware this movie even existed until a few months ago, and I so wish I could go back to my life before finding out this information. Released in 1983 and directed by Richard Fleischer, Amityville 3D is a supernatural horror film starring the likes of Tony Roberts, Meg Ryan, Tess Harper, Robert Joy, and Candy Clark, as well as a young Lori Loughlin. With it following investigative reporter John Baxter, who buys the notorious murder house in Amityville, New York, in an attempt to prove that the stories about demons and ghosts are fraudulent. However, soon his children begin to experience nightmarish terrors, with supernatural occurrences taking place inside of the home, with them fearing evil has spread outside of the home as well. Now, this movie was doomed from the get-go, with it running with a PG rating, as opposed to its predecessor's R rating, both of which were great movies. Not to mention it's also the first in the franchise not to be based on a true story. I mean, are any of them true stories? Probably not. However, saying that, there is no new story, with it retreading what its predecessors already did. Now, at first, John Baxter chalks up all the mysterious goings-on to his imagination. However, after enlisting the help of a poltergeist team, he soon discovers the truth, that he's living in a haunted house. Despite there being a few good thrills, the movie does fall short, even smacks you in the face with the boom mic, quite literally. That comes out of nowhere. Coming in at number 3, we have The Rage, Carrie 2. Yes, there was a sequel to Carrie, and yes, it's okay if you had no idea that it existed. Released in 1999 and directed by Kat Shear, The Rage, Carrie 2 is a supernatural horror starring the likes of Emily Burgle, Jason London, Dylan Bruno, J. Smith Cameron, and Amy Irving. No one that you've heard of, which is not a shock. The movie follows the younger half-sister of Carrie White, who also possesses telekinesis. After she discovers that her best friend's death was spurred on by a group of popular male classmates who exploited her, she seeks revenge. The Rage, Carrie 2 sadly takes a great story and tries to replicate it without bringing anything new to the table. It does have some unique kills, but not enough to convince viewers that this is a good movie. Now, I will say the film could be unfavorably compared to its predecessor, with it not being taken at its own merit, but saying that, still not the greatest movie, in my opinion anyway. It's a sequel that never needed to happen. The film, as you would expect, was met with overwhelmingly negative reviews, with it being a box office bomb, grossing around $17 million on a budget of $21 million. One particular review states, I quote, "As disposable as its predecessor is indispensable. The Rage, Carrie 2 mimics the arc of Stephen King's classic story without adding anything of value." Sadly, Sissy Spacek's absence was also incredibly obvious in the movie, with it arguably being the actress that made the original movie so damn great. Coming in at number 2, we have Pumpkinhead 2, Bloodwings. I don't even need to begin to explain why this movie deserves a place on our list. I think we all understand. Released in 1994 and directed by Jeff Burr, this direct-to-video sequel to Pumpkinhead stars the likes of Andrew Robinson, Annie Dolan, kill Harper and Roger Clinton Jr., with the movie taking place in a small Kansas town in 1958, as a group of teens are tortured and killed by a disfigured man named Tony. However, 35 years later, another gang of teens emerge, robbing a cabin of an old witch, with the movie taking place in a small Kansas town in 1958, as a group of teens are tortured and killed by a disfigured man named Tommy. However, 35 years later, another gang of teens emerge, robbing a cabin of an old witch, with them inadvertently resurrecting Tommy after using blood and taking a spell from her house. However, Tommy returns in the form of the demon Pumpkinhead, with him angry and hunting down the teens who summoned him and the men who killed Tommy. Now, what makes this movie so ridiculous right off the bat is the simple fact that it barely relates in any way to the other movies in the franchise, not to mention it suffers from obvious pains of video budgeting. Not to mention the movie was directed by the man responsible for movies such as Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 and The Stepfather 2, not the most acclaimed movies. Now, what made the first Pumpkinhead so great was that it was a surprisingly polished B movie with great effects and a perfect horror formula about vengeance. However, the sequel lacked all of these qualities and instead felt like the dollar version of its predecessor without the charm. Pumpkinhead 2 Bloodwings was also followed by the PC game Bloodwings Pumpkinhead's Revenge. And finally, coming in at number 1, Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. For those who have seen the 8th installment in the Friday the 13th franchise, you will understand why this is not only on our list, but also why it is number 1. Released in 1989 and directed by Rob Hedden, Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan stars Jensen Daggett, Scott Reeves, Peter Mark Richmond, and Kane Hodder, with the movie following Jason as he stalks a group of high school graduates on a ship that is en route to New York City. Now, what upset viewers the most was the fact that we were lied to. When Jason Takes Manhattan came along, there were promises of Jason slashing his way through New York City, taking down tourists, Broadway singers, and Studio 54 clubbers. However, this is not what we got. We barely got a movie that takes place in New York, despite the title promising that. Instead, it took a total of 1 hour and 3 minutes for Jason to even get to the city, and for the Statue of Liberty to even appear on our screen. And how long do we get in New York? Around 3 minutes of actual city before the shots transition to rooftops and Vancouver filming locations. And of course, in one of the worst but also funniest scenes, Jason engages in a boxing match of sorts with one of the characters who thinks he can simply knock Jason out. Instead, Jason knocks him out by quite literally punching his head off. To quote one review of this poorly executed movie, Jason terrorizes a ship and nearly sinks the franchise in a clunky sequel that feels like a self-parody without the charm. And honestly, that's the best way to describe it. I mean, Jason even has a few self-referential moments similar to Ferris Bueller. It's an absolute joke. Now, as you would expect, the movie was met with overwhelmingly negative reviews, with critics commenting on its weak humor, unintelligent plotting, and failure to deliver any kind of horror. Despite that, though, it was followed by another movie in 1993, Jason Goes to Hell: The Final Friday. Why I didn't opt to discuss that movie, I have no idea. Maybe in part 3. Well, there we have it. Do you guys agree with our list? What's your least favorite horror movie sequel? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below, and perhaps we can do a part 3. Before I go though, I just want to respond to a few comments from one of our last videos, Top 5 Worst Horror Movie Death Scenes Montage. Unplugged Gaming said Toni Collette deserved an Oscar for Hereditary. She was full spectrum of emotions. I completely agree. I think she deserves an Oscar for every movie she's in. I haven't seen Toni Collette in a bad movie. I don't think. I probably have. I've just removed it from my mind. Theron Gillian Jr. said, I think that Lucy gleefully ruining movies by sharing spoilers is my favourite part of this channel. I'm sorry. I try to not spoil movies. It just happens. I spoil all movies for everyone. I enjoy it. Tony Hardy said, I'm missing Lucy though. She is Jack's true predecessor. I mean, I am here. I didn't go anywhere. And I am Jack's predecessor. Am I? Not on top 5. Jack was on top 5 before me. Oops. I was here before him. Angela Petter said, yes, Queen Lucy of Darkness, I was going through withdrawals from not enough of your videos. I'm feeling better now. I adore your giggles. I so feel you, but as you're describing the opening scene of Jaws and the incident from Hereditary, when Peter is rushing Charlie to the hospital, you look gorgeous. Cheers. Thank you. Yeah, I completely agree. Jaws, Hereditary, messed up. The Jaws opening scene still gives me chills. Like, I like to fast forward over that. It makes me feel funny, and not in a good way. Gimme Kiss 2021 said, Lucy, though stunning pretty, they are casting for a new clown to play it. Would you consider playing that role? Seriously, if you could play in any horror movie, what would it be? Well, it certainly wouldn't be Pennywise, that's for sure. I think I would go for something like Annie Wilkes in Misery. That seems right up my street. I've got Annie Wilkes vibes, for sure. Or Carrie White. either one. And on that note, if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, and until next time, I'll see you later.